Welcome back to part two here on Sheffield Live. Actually, we're just talking about how the magic behind us works with the windows and the scenes across Sheffield. We've actually got a green screen. I don't know how it works. Neither does Peter Elliott, the celebrated Rotherham athlete, and neither does James Kemp, a visitor to the studio also for the first time. Both of you making debuts. And James Kemp is here, if you haven't heard, because he's the Super Blades biker who's cycling to every away game this season. James, you've broken the back of it now, but goodness me, what a back it is to break. Hey?
Good evening. I'd just like to say quickly on that one, doesn't include the cup games, because with the latest cup draw, I don't want people thinking I'm going to Millwall, because that will be Arsenal, Millwall, then Palace on the 3 weeks on the trot.
Yeah. I was going to say that put it to you that you were praying for the Sheffield United to lose at Millwall in the next round, but you don't have to worry about it.
I'm going to go on the train to that one. I'm going to go as a normal fan.
He's cheating, Peter.
Yeah.
No.
He's cheating.
Yeah, going to Millwall, they might just let your tyres down as well, might
Yeah.
Well, you said that about Liverpool.
And with no disrespect or discourtesy, you're not a young guy either, are you?
No, I'm 52 now, actually. I was 52 in November, so it's not easy. It's a challenge I've set myself 5 years ago when Nigel Atkins came along and all the Blades were, yes, at last we're going to get out of this league and this is it. First game of the season, went down to Gillingham with my son. We were 3-0 down after about half an hour and we ended up losing 4-0. And that was it. As far as I was concerned, I was, 48. We would never make it to the Premier League again. And
in your lifetime?
In my lifetime, that was it.
And that's what you told?
And that's what I said. I said it out loud. And if we did it, I would cycle to all the league matches.
Who did you say that to?
Well, my son was in the car and his friend as well, so whether they remember it, I don't know. If my son would remember it...
But they reminded you of it?
My son would have reminded me if he remembered.
Yeah. Well, come to James's exploits in a minute, but did you, following football very closely, and I know Rotherham's your team, but did you kind of think, as I often did, that's it for Sheffield, can't ever see a Premier League team here again?
I would say, I think when you've got the clubs as big as obviously Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday with the fan base as well, and like Leeds United,
it's going to happen eventually.
You would have hoped to have seen them in the Premiership without a doubt.
Yeah.
And I think it's great what the Blades have done. I think Chris Wilder's done a fantastic job there, and I think he's gone beyond the level of expectations and the way that they've held their own. And it's tremendous to see them at the top of the league. And I say that as a Rotherham fan, and Rotherham fans would probably say, why is he saying that? But for me as a sports person, you just have to acknowledge that it's just fantastic what they've achieved.
You've got more tension with Sheffield Wednesday, though, haven't you? I would say, than Sheffield United.
Probably just on the basis that we've had Mr. Warnock as a manager a couple of times, so obviously he's not.
And he's done very good.
He's done great with us, but as I say, I know the Wednesday fans don't particularly like Mr. Warnock.
Well, they've got respect for him,
Yeah.
They've got a very grudging but real respect for him, as we have for both of you guys. Peter, we talked in part one about your career. We were coming on to the reception that you had from the people of Rotherham, like nothing else. I remember being there covering it for Radio Hallam in the late 80s, and just people just on the streets. How did you feel yourself about that?
Well, the first time I came across it was I came back from the World Champs in '83, and I turned down onto the road, and I wondered what was going off, and then I realised it was for me.
You wondered what was going on?
Yeah, because you just don't expect to turn out and see a street full of people, and then obviously it happened again in '87 and '88 and then '90. So I think they just liked a street party, to be honest, like anything. So, but it was nice, and that's what I mean. I had a lot of support from people in the town, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. And this exercise that this guy's getting in the cycling, have you ever been an endurance man? Because all of your distances are 800 metres, 1500 metres. Have you ever attempted anything approaching marathon distance?
No. In training, I would average between 70 and 80 miles a week in training. So the longest run I would
10
do
miles
is
a
probably
day-ish,
10 on, and sometimes I go to like a 15-mile run on a Sunday morning, just to obviously for the endurance. But I think if I hadn't had to cut short my career due to problems with discs in my bike, then it would have been nice to have done the Great North Run. It would have been nice to have trained and done the London Marathon just to see. But I think, it's like my wife's done the London Marathon twice, Diane, and I always say for people who do a marathon, you never get asked where you finish. Someone says, I finished 34,762. They always say, what time have you run? Yeah, so if you're only ever going to do one, you've really got to really go for it and make sure you get it right. Otherwise, you've got to go back the following year. So, it's one of those things that just didn't happen.
No, whereas in your sort of racing, people did want to know where you finished, and that was make or break for you, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. So it's and generally, there was an expectation you'd finish on the podium.
Yeah. How did you cope with that? The pre-race nerves, the expectation, knowing that millions were going to be watching, and many willing you on. But
it's an interesting one. You kind of a little bit of aware of it, and I wasn't truly aware of it until I won. The Commonwealth Games gold medal down in Auckland, New Zealand. So when I race, it would be about 3 o'clock in the morning back here. And if David Hayward, who you mentioned earlier, when I won that, he left his house in Rotherham and he took a bottle of champagne up to my mum and dad's house in Romosh. And afterwards, when I came home, he said as he was driving, he suddenly realised that all the lights in the houses were on. All the way to, and when he said that, it's not something that I went to the start line, thinking about or appreciating, but after that, that's when you know that obviously you're having an impact on other people, and so. But generally, what you would do is obviously you've always had your pre-race plan, but as soon as the gun went, and you'd have the nerves, and you'd always be, you'd have your set plan on how you're going to run the race. You'd hope that you could execute that plan, and you'd hear the crowd. But as soon as the gun went, then that was it. There was a silence, and then your concentration on what you were doing. And it was only really till you were kicking off the bend, the last probably 100 metres, that the crowd started to come back in again. So,
well, we're going to relive a moment like that, some moments like that from Seoul shortly on the show with your Olympic silver medal. Before we just come to that, James, you're doing this mad exploit for Sheffield Children's Hospital, so it's not entirely mad.
No, and to be honest with you, when I announced I was going to do it for such a good cause, going back to what Peter was saying there, when you get the support on, not to the same degree as Peter got, but little bits on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, when you get the support and keep going, and when I get to the ground and the fans are all, well done, I saw you at Watford, or I saw you at Everton, that it keeps you going, and especially doing it for the children. There are times, West Ham away, Tottenham away, when I felt really, really up against it, and the wall was approaching me. And all I had to do was to think of the kids and think of the parents that were going through hell watching the kids being poorly. I've had my son who was in and out of hospital as a child, and it's heart-wrenching. So, but to think of that, it's amazing how much that gets you going, and you don't feel wet or you don't feel cold anymore. You just carry on going. Yeah. So it's good. It's really good that I've chosen the Children's Hospital for this task. Yeah.
And how much have you raised so far?
It's just touched 4,000.
Right. Yeah. Target?
Well, it was 5,000, but I want to up it now to 10. I want to be greedy and try and raise 10, because as I'm going along, I'm doing a blog, and the blog is full of emotion. It's full of the downsides, the upsides. I'm doing the blog every night when I finish the riding, so it's getting the raw emotion there. And as I read back, I'm thinking, this might be good in a book, and it might be good for people who cycle, it might be good for people who just like to get around, it might be good for people who struggle mental health-wise.
You told me beforehand that you have
struggled
with your mental health, and you were quite happy to talk about
absolutely,
that.
Yeah. In January, I had a series of events over the last few years that it basically came to a head in January. And I did. I had a major meltdown. Family were really good. The doctors were great. Friends were great. And I'm in a great place now. And that's...
This is a year on.
Yeah, year on now. And I do remember very distinctively, I was at my mum and dad's. I went out on the bike. I just thought, I summoned enough mental ability, if you like, to get on the bike. And I went into the peaks. I did 30 miles. And I came back. I wouldn't say I was better. But I felt so much with it, I felt so much better, and I thought, right, I need to get on with this. And I went back to the doctors eventually and said, look, I want to get off these tablets. I said, I think the exercise is so much better than the antidepressants. So, and that's what I did, and I've not looked back, and I don't want to look back.
But I think inspiration there for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's how the mind is related to the physical body.
Endorphins, at least, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, there are light-hearted sides to this as well. Because I said to you, what a mild winter it's been. You must be grateful for that. And you said you don't know the half of it.
I'm going to take challenge with that one.
I mean, you've been through some weather. Tell me about it.
To be fair, it's winter, so what can I expect? But I was saying earlier that I can tell you the forecast for next Thursday. It's going to rain, and it's going to be suddenly headwinds into my face when I go down to Arsenal.
Arsenal, yeah, that's you got a weekend off.
Oh, yeah.
Sheffield United v West Ham Friday night.
Yeah.
You don't bike to the home games as well, do you?
Well, I did. I went down to the cup one, not the cup one. I went down to the previous one, and I'm going to start doing that because I've now got permission to tie the bike up in a certain place. So I'm going to start going down to the
biking to the home games as well.
It's all downhill on the way.
All right. Well, in a moment we're going to do a little bit of mental arithmetic to work out. I've tried, and apparently my figure's well short of what the reality is. But before that, let's take you back to the Olympic Games in Seoul in 1988. Many millions out there were glued to television. I'm not quite sure what time of day this race would have been, Peter, in this country.
In this country, I'm not too sure. It was mid-afternoon in Seoul.
In Seoul, crikey, mid-afternoon in Seoul.
So it was still early hours of the morning.
Early hours of the morning here. And we joined the race with two iconic commentators with, just a couple of laps to go.
Under 2 laps left and approaching 800 metres.
Well, the more under 2 minutes they can be at this point, the happier the two Britons will be, because they're used to running fast races. 2 minutes and 3.31 of a second, that's almost enough. I think the race will begin to boil now, and I think the two Britons have got as good a chance here. And look at Steve Scott following Cram. He's tracked him every inch of the way. That's his tactics.
The Kenyans 1 and 2, and now Jeff Atkinson, the American #1 in their trials, comes through. The leader, Peter Rono. Atkinson in second place. Cram's followed all the lead all the time. The other Kenyan up there is Jasiri, and right at the back is Chariot. And Steve Scott's pulled out. Peter Elliott is boxed as they come to the bell. Still Rono leading. Atkinson in second place. Peter Elliott goes third. Cram 4. And Steve Scott couldn't find his way through, and Harold is right there too, the East German danger. So the race really boiling and bubbling now with just over 300 left. It's still Rono leading. Elliott in second place, Atkinson third, Cram 4, Harold 5, Scott 6, Coca 7. Who's the 200 to go, and Cram is still waiting. Rono leads. Peter Elliott second. What's Cram got? He's not made any move. Harold in third place. And Cram, can he find anything at all? Chariot's making an effort, but it's Rono in front. And are they going to catch him? Harold comes through on the inside, and here comes Cram with a late run. It's Elliott. Elliott chasing Rono, but he can't get there. Rono wins. Elliott second. Harold third. Cram 4. Britain's 2 places in the first 4, but not the gold.
It's just engrossing and exhausting watching that. Almost wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah. Second again.
How do you feel watching that?
It's an interesting one, Alan, because I went out there and I chose to do the doubles. So I did the 8 and the 1500, and they've changed the format now. But I ran 4 rounds of the 800. I was the only athlete to have made both finals. Cram was doing it, he didn't make the final of the 800. So I ran 4 rounds of the 800. 2 days rest, and there's 3 rounds of the 1500. And in between, when I was warming up for the final of the 800, I had a problem with the symphysis pubis area, and I found out later I'd torn that. So I had to have injections to get me onto the start line for the heat of the 15, and the semi, and then the final. But I remember, I distinctly remember standing on the start line of the 1500 metres final, waiting, and I remember saying to myself, my legs are tired. And I think the advantage, and I made that choice. But Rono was going in with fresh legs. That was his third race, whereas it was going to be my seventh. And on hindsight, because it's a wonderful thing, I should have just done the one event, the 1500, but I didn't. I chose to do two. I got a fourth in the 800, and I came away with a silver medal.
How did the legs feel at the end of it, then?
Well, that was it. It was. I came back from that, and I'd done a lot of damage to the area, and eventually, again, through physio with Debbie Horn and Rotherham, but I was put in hospital on bed rest for 2 weeks. In all honesty, I didn't think I would ever run again.
Really?
The damage I'd done. So to come back and then in 1990 win a Commonwealth Games was a real bonus.
And get a gold, at the Commonwealth Games. Do you ever watch that thinking, I might win this time?
No, I don't watch it, to be perfectly honest, unless it's something like that. I don't particularly watch any old races at all. But with that one, it was a silver medal, and we had a tendency to win gold medals at the Olympic Games in the 1500.
Was it bittersweet? There was a sweet bitter.
It's probably why it still hides away in the back of a cupboard. It's Cole won in 1980, Cole defended his title in 84, so to come away with a silver medal, in fact it took me until the 2000 Olympic Games, and I was working for Brendan then. I was doing some media stuff at home I'd been watching all the Olympics and the 1500 metre final, and I worked out, I think there'd been 26 Olympic Games, so that meant there was 26 silver medals at 1500 metres, and I had one of them, and then I realised how difficult it actually was to win an Olympic medal. And so I thought maybe I should be a little bit more proud of what it is.
You didn't appreciate, you could tell there, you didn't look ecstatic. You weren't delighted.
No.
And in fact, the outwords on the clip that we've had there from David Coleman alongside Brendan Foster were, but not gold.
Yeah.
Which struck me as being a little bit cruel, but not so harsh, because David Coleman did add in parts of that we didn't see. Let's pay tribute to Peter Elliott, the Rotherham joiner, who's had such a magnificent Olympics. And I dare say you even now need reminding.
And that's the last medal we won in Britain in the men's 1500. So it's nobody would have thought that at the time, would it? Nobody would have thought that at the time. So hopefully, when I was talking about, we had 3 guys earlier in the World Championships. So hopefully this, when Tokyo comes around, hopefully one of those, and maybe one of the other guys, Charlie Grice, someone.
32 years on. That's the last 1500. Medal
at the Olympic Games.
An English runner has
British
won.
runner has won.
Yes, British runner has won. That's an incredible statistic that went over my head. To be honest, talk about over your head. I did notice the look over the shoulder there for Steve.
I was looking for Craven because part of it wasn't. It was making sure he didn't get boxed in. Because if you saw the race, I was in a good position. And then it's so easy that everything changes, because the first 2 laps were incredibly slow. And then so that. Generally, it's going to start to wind up. Probably some people will go at 600, some will go at 5. When you're approaching the bell, so you've got to be. So I was in a bad position. I managed to get back through, force my way out a little bit. So, and that's what I mean. You're always conscious. You go to a race with a set plan. You want to execute that plan. But you've got to be conscious of what's going off at all times.
Do you find that fellow countrymen would try and do that boxing in? Because when you're looking at that, you were boxed in.
Sometimes. It was some teams, some athletes, they will, especially some of the Kenyans at times, they will try and do that. And I think we've seen that with Mo Farah in the past. But on that, it wasn't particularly. It was just, it was a slow race, and that's what happens when you get a slow race. You want a fast race where they string them out, and in something like that, you're potentially going to get boxed. And if you get boxed on the inside at a slow pace, somebody makes a move at the bell, it's very difficult to recoup that ground, to be perfectly honest.
Do you ever get boxed in, James?
Sometimes I feel as I'm boxed in before I go out, to be honest.
Well, let's reel this off, because this is impressive. This is where he cycled to this season, OK? I made a list. I tried to tally the miles. I think I've got it wrong. He's been to Bournemouth. He's been to... and by the way, he's got a fantastic away record as well for Sheffield United. He's been to Bournemouth, Chelsea, Everton, Watford, West Ham, Spurs, Wolves, Norwich, Brighton, Manchester City and Liverpool. Next stop, Arsenal. And I kind of look, because I'm quite good at expenses, claiming expenses, for where I go.
Yeah, but you're going down the M1, aren't you? You're going straight down the M1.
So, this is a mistake I made. So I came to about 1,150 miles, but that's not the
it's over 1,500, nearly 1,600 now.
Nearly 1,600.
That's based on Strava.
That's a long way.
And sounds even more
You don't
impressive.
bike it back though, do you?
No, on the train back.
cheating.
But I've climbed 70,000 feet, so that sounds even more
Have you?
impressive, doesn't it?
As a result. So how do you plan logistically your route? You can't go on motorways.
It's really, really simple. I just get the Google Maps on the screen. I'll get a piece of paper or a ruler between South Sheffield and wherever I'm going. I get right with GPS out, and I just literally plot the route, and that's it. And sort of 80 miles in, I'll stop at a B&B, which I'll pre-plan.
Your furthest trip being Brighton?
That was as bad as I expected it to be.
3-dayer?
4-dayer. It was. I only got 25 to do on the last day, but I count that as a day because I had to go up Ditchling Dyke, which is equivalent to anything around here. It was really tough. And the rain, constant rain. You'll
have seen areas of the country that rest of us haven't.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, that's one thing that I would recommend if people have the time. Even if it's in the car and they're going somewhere like London or down south, just put your sat-nav on to no motorways and just see the beautiful villages we've got.
And how can people donate?
I've got a Just Giving page. If they look on Just Giving fundraising, James Kemp, 1889, that'd be really, really appreciated.
And Sheffield Children's Hospital are promoting your site. So the website Den Blades, is it?
I think everyone on Twitter has got hold of it now. Yeah,
all the Blades supporters websites.
The supporters have been absolutely phenomenal, and the away support. Well, the home supporters.
Are they?
It's phenomenal. When I'm getting there and I get the usual joke, "You've not cycled down here, have you?" And when I've convinced them I've done it, they start throwing money. The best one I've got is outside Chelsea. I literally pulled up because 5 miles out. I put my United shirt on so people can see it's the crazy man doing it to try and get some money in. And I stopped outside what was Chelsea's main pub.
Yeah.
Now you know the reputation of Chelsea fans, and I looked round and I saw these St George's flags, and this big guy came to me and said, "You've not," in a Cockney accent, "you've not sorted down here." I says, "Yeah, I have." Come on and have a drink. So I was in their main pub having a drink.
Brilliant.
It was great.
You can get to places other Sheffield United fans can't get
absolutely,
to. In every way, every which way. Great stuff. Couple of minutes left. Peter, your current role as head of operations or some grand title of the English Institute of Sport, what does that mean?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the role of the English Institute of Sport, and there's a fabulous building in Sheffield, which is not that's the name of the building. We are, as an organisation, we provide all the science and sports medicine to the athletes who will go to Tokyo and the Olympics and the Paralympic Games. My role is to oversee 10 sites, and from Gateshead in the north all the way down to Bath, down in the south, and make sure that they're operational effectively, so that the athletes that we look after have every opportunity to go to the games.
Are you confident in the future?
I think obviously it's very, very promising. Yeah, definitely. We had an exceptional Olympics in 2012. We increased on the medal tally in Rio, so it'd be nice to think that we can increase on that again. And
boom time again.
It is, and there's some new sports coming in. So climbing is one. Shauna Coxey from Sheffield, so that's a new sport that's come in as well. So and looking ahead.
Do you cater in any way, shape, or form for the winter sports?
So all the Olympic and Paralympic athletes. So whether it's winter and summer games. So we look at, and we also look after some of the English sports. So England netball and squash, and that as well.
It's a huge show.
It is, but it's good to be, obviously a big part of my life was wrapped around track and field, where this is wrapped around all sports, and obviously in Sheffield we have the GB boxing squad in there, and Anthony Joshua comes in to train, para badminton, para table tennis, wheelchair basketball are based in there now, so it's a very busy environment in there.
And so it is here. Time flies when you're running and biking, it really does. Our time is up, I'm afraid. It's been a joy and fascinating too to talk to Peter Elliott and to James Kemp. Thanks so much for coming in. Thank you to you for watching on my YouTube later. If you missed, we'll see you next week. Bye now.